Hey. So I got a quick question. Can you tell the difference in quality between this colored pencil drawing and this one? And before I spoil it, there's a reason why one looks like it came straight out of a coloring book.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no.
And the other one is constantly mistaken for a photograph. Don't believe me? So color pencil has been my favorite medium for years, and yes, years, because I have officially reached UNC status. And throughout these years of practice, I've picked up on a lot of useful tips to help me take my artwork to a higher level. So if you're ready to impress your friends and be seen as an art god to strangers on the internet, then stick around for the nuggets of wisdom here. So for the past few months, I've been drawing a shit ton of cupcakes, and I mean a shit ton. Because I think it's important to revisit subject matter multiple times to work on pushing the execution further, especially when it comes to texture. And believe me, you can't even fathom the amount of times that I've drawn, erased, and redrawn cake texture until I was happy with the result. And usually I'm not even happy with the result, I just end up thinking, you know what, I've suffered enough. But once the piece is complete, it tends to work because you see the texture in full context of things like lighting and value relationships, instead of just seeing it in isolation. Now, regarding the brands I use, I couldn't really tell you why I use Prismacolor Premier and Strathmore Tone Tan Paper over other brands, because that's all I have experience with. But most artists are using what I'm using, and I'd always assumed it was for a good reason. I do know that the wax material in Prismacolor makes blending especially easy, but other than that, that's pretty much all I have to say on that topic. Anyways, enough of my yapping. You came to understand why a piece like this falls flat when it comes to realism.
This is the way.
Right away you'll notice it has the dreaded grainy look, which is notorious for colored pencil work. Now, full disclosure, there are some artists like Sarah Evans who keep the grainy look in their realism. And don't ask me why. I assume it's because they want people to think that they use colored pencils with their medium. Unfortunately, that prevents the viewer from mistaking the work for a photograph, or not being sure if it's a painting or some other type of medium. And trust me, they love that shit and they can't get enough of it. Viewers love when their expectations are challenged because they're expecting colored pencil to look a certain grainy way. So then, what's the technique for achieving this? It's called burnishing. When layering your work, you want to press rather lightly to preserve the paper tooth, which is that visible grain that you see. But with burnishing, once you have your last layer, you want to press really hard to lock it in so that no tooth or grain is visible. Now, you can still layer on top of the burnished layer, which is what I often do, but it's not as easy as it would be if you still had some paper tooth available. Regardless, I'm still able to add highlights on top of the burnished layer, depending on what the color mix is. But burnishing is not the only trick that I'm going to show you.
Oh no.
I have more up my sleeve that's going to take your work to the level that most people dream of. But for this tip, we're going to have to bring in a trusty dusty tool that I think most of you are familiar with, and that is Photoshop. Now, before you guys shut off the video and crucify me in the comments because we're not working on digital art, please just let me explain. This is specifically for those of us working with a photo reference. And trust me, if you're doing realism, you're going to be working with a photo reference. That is, unless you're an absolute god at imagining perfect form, lighting, values, etc. for an object off of the top of your dome. And if that's you, then why are you even watching this video? Shut it off and leave us plebs in the dust. But for the rest of us, we're going to be utilizing a few important tools that I think most digital painting software has, except for maybe Microsoft Paint. And the first important tool is the eyedropper tool. I know, you were expecting something fancy. But this is the one simple tool that I almost refuse to work without, and for good reason. The reason why it's so important, especially for color and value accuracy, is because we often try to draw what we think goes somewhere versus what is actually there. Now, I'm sure you guys heard this concept before, but just as a refresher, our brains don't see color objectively. The exact same color can appear darker, lighter, cooler, or warmer, depending on the surrounding color. And that's why I use the eyedropper tool, because it allows my brain to see what's actually there instead of what I think is there. When drawing one of my cupcakes, it's tempting to want to use a mostly brown color for the cake texture, and then driving yourself nuts with how many times you have to redraw because it looks like a literal pile of shit, only to realize with the eyedropper tool that the color is actually a mostly warm dark gray, And then inevitably, you end up crying in the corner from all the precious limited time you have on this planet being wasted on the fact that you failed to observe your subject matter accurately. So please take my advice here, and thank me for the hours of your life that I've spared you by not wasting on this mistake. Now, while we're still on the topic of cake texture execution, I actually got another useful tip that I can offer you. And this will apply to most pieces you are working on, unless you want to make yourself suffer and work on a very large color pencil drawing of a cupcake. But if you're a normal person who doesn't want to hate your life and all of existence, and wants to make a normal sized cupcake, then really understand when you should zoom into your reference and when you should zoom out. A lot of the time for cake textures, if I'm zoomed in to the absolute max, trying to recreate every groove and crevice, the result ends up looking a little bit too busy, like it's almost brainy or ropey. And that's definitely not ideal, and it's likely to make you lose your appetite, which is not what we want. I also recommend zooming out more so it collapses those details so you can just focus on conveying the main idea as a smoother and more simplified texture. Even though it's realism, it's definitely preferable to have a little bit of improvisation because it adds a little bit of character, personality, and style to the piece. I definitely find that more interesting than just a one-to-one copy of everything you see, but as long as the composition is cohesive in lighting and values, then everything should fit together quite nicely. So another tool in Photoshop that I absolutely love is the saturation tool. With this one, with your photo reference, you're able to turn the saturation down to 0, and that effectively tells you what the value relationships are because you're just seeing how dark certain things are and how light things are, and just to be able to see, how far I should be taking it. It's really, really crucial for making good artwork, and it's definitely helped me a lot, so I definitely recommend that. Alrighty, so let's wrap this bad boy up. So in summary, we talked about burnishing, so you want to have a nice polished look to your piece. We also talked about the eyedropper tool. You want to know what color you're looking at on your photo reference, and knowing exactly when you need to zoom in and zoom out so you can simplify details if necessary. And then we need to know the value composition, so being able to turn the saturation down to see the relationships and values. So if you guys appreciated the little lessons that I shared here about Prismacolor and color pencil work, please do hit subscribe and like. That'll really help me out. I'm going to be posting a lot more, and it could range from tutorial stuff to progress stuff to even just talking about whatever I think is relevant in the art sphere. And yeah, if you guys like it, then please come along for the ride. Thanks, I appreciate it.